rather than go through all the hassle of making a new front, I made a new welt, and this is the second front that I made, and it fit the knife really well, so I made a new welt for it, reburnished the top. My only issue that could be with this is my tolerances are going to be tight when I go to sand everything, because this was all sanded and the problem was at the top. I've resolved the problem at the top. Took my awl, pretend this is my awl, and I ran my hole through at an angle, just the very top one, because of the angle that is here with the angle to the welt. I needed one hole that was gonna at the top that'll hold it together better. The problem before was my hole went straight through, and every time you'd stick the blade in, it would pull the very top of the sheath out just a little bit. I wasn't comfortable with that. So now I ran my hole at an angle so it'll hold the very top down better to the back of the sheath. Should resolve that issue. If it doesn't, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to order some rivets that are going to be longer and hold that down better. That's the only thing I can think of to do. So I refitted everything so that the blade fits in there nice. There's no gap at the top. It fits real well. All I need to do is sew this on, and you want to make sure everything is in line the way you want it before you go mark. I've got my holes are through all the way from the front all the way through the welt, just how I want them, and I think I like what I'm seeing right where it is. So I'm not going to move it. Let me get a little more water on there. I want it to soak in pretty good. Going on the inside of the loop there and on the outside, just so it gets good. And I'm probably, since I've got this, it's winding up to be a goofy project, and I'm having as much trouble as I've been having with this sheath. It's all self-induced, believe me. All because I haven't done a sheath in quite some time. I am going to go ahead and I'm probably just going to mark some holes and get this thing together. We've got 6 needles in there, and you can see by the 2 on the top, those are the holes that I did at an angle so that they come out in the back and they'll hold the top of the sheath down a little tighter. I'm hoping that does the trick, because I sure didn't like the last one, which is a real bummer. But this is the front off of that last one. I am going to take and a little Resolene and get under on this piece underneath the sheath here, underneath the front, before I stitch it up, because I can't get that afterwards. Well, I probably could. There's not much of it in there. I'd probably use a Q-tip and get in there, cotton swab. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to give the top of this a little bit, one more little burnish quick, and then I'm going to stick it together. And then that'll be it. I hate doing that much work, but it is what it is. So I'll be back in a little bit. I'll get that burnished. We'll glue her up, start stitching on it. So I've got 2 coats of glue on here. I'm going to start in the 3rd hole down with my needles, just for alignment purposes. And right in that very last hole. And I want to make sure that the top here is aligned. I'm just going to kind of, just like any other time, just try to go down evenly with everything. I'm going to take a couple of holes and just randomly stick my needle through, make sure that they're aligned. So far so good, looks good. Before I take those last ones out, the hammering after you glue, hammering that glue kind of sets it. Just helps it to glue tight. We'll just make sure we've got all of our holes are going to line up, especially these top ones. Alright, I'm happy with that. There we go. I'm going to let that sit for just a little bit. These are my my offcuts from my welt. And if you keep one hanging around that'll fit in there, you can use that as a spacer, so you can clamp this up in your stitching pony and use your pony for it. That way the center won't collapse while you're trying to stitch, because that can cause a problem. So I'm going to use that in there and put it in my pony. So I will be back. I already cut my thread. The disadvantage to punching your holes and then gluing is you're going to be running through your glue. You'll have to clean your needles as you go. Every couple of holes you'll have to kind of clean the glue off your needles. My first stitch, I'm going in the second hole. And you should always pull on your needle when you're pulling with the pliers. You should always pull this way. Don't do like I do, do like I say. I've been pulling out that pair of pliers on these needles, and I'm just kind of used to pulling how I do. And then I'm going to go, I always like to work away from myself. This is one of those cases where I'm going to work towards myself. Just is kind of going to work that way. So it's going, this is the one that's going at an angle. I'm going to pull that one down a bit. And this one's going to pass through and pull up, because that's the angle. My stitch holes are angled up and back. And my thread, this thread is going up, this thread is going over the top. If you saw my stitching video, I kind of explained why that happens. Every now and again I want to look to make sure that my stitches are looking good on both sides. Remember me saying I'd rather come up with extra thread than not enough? I just came up short. I didn't have enough. I got all the way to the end, but not enough to do any back stitches. Kind of a conundrum there, isn't it? What do you do? I got to the end. Do you trust that you don't need the back stitches? I trust my stitching and I trust my glue job, but if I don't backstitch, I'm relying on that glue to make that connection, more so. I couldn't even get one backstitch in there. Or do you take it all out and start over? Some people don't. They'll just pick a spot, they'll pull a few stitches out, and they'll start another stitch line. If I can't hide the ends, I don't do that. I'm going to pull it all out and start over on this side. The other side ended down here and I backstitched 2 stitches, 2.5, and melted it down, and I felt good with that. If I can't do at least one, I don't feel comfortable with it, so we'll pull them all out and start over. Now I'm going to see if I can trim this without screwing it up. I screwed one up, making the stitch holes, and I screwed the other one up, trimming it. Double check, make sure everything fits the way I want it. Oh yeah. No gap forming up here like it was on one of them, where that stitching was, because I made that stitch. I angled my stitch hole so that it came out at an angle. It came up higher here to keep everything together better. Perfect. Exactly the way I wanted it. Let's not screw it up. Trimming to the welt, and the welt is a little bit big. So I should be okay with that. I've got so many different blades that I can use to trim. Sometimes I just have to remember to go back to what I'm used to using, what I know that I'm good with. I started out using this knife. I've been using this thing. Well, I started doing leathercraft 12 years ago. Yeah, something like that. And I've been using this knife ever since. Why change? Sometimes stick with what you know you're good with. Alright, about as close as I'm going to get with the knife. trim this flash off of here now. At least on this side. And then if I hand sand that a little bit, that'll start looking a lot nicer here. But we're pretty close. All done with the rotary tool. Now we're just, I kind of went over everything with 220. Now I'm just kind of going over it with some 320. Well, they say third time's the charm. So far, everything is looking fantastic. Alright, I'm going to put a little dye on there. I'm going to stick in a finger in here just to spread this belt loop out a little bit. If you don't trust your finger to do the job, you can grab something like just a solid ruler and use that. Sometimes I'll use that. Sometimes I'll grab this tool. Whatever you got, something that'll give you a nice solid flat backing. When I get to a curved area, I use my piece of coat hanger or a dowel. So that's the burnish with, I've made 2 passes with the 320 grit and some gum trag. It is very smooth. There's a little bit down here I could probably take out. I can see it. I don't know if it'll show up on camera. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little here where you can see the layers. I'll probably take a little bit of that out. But now I'm at a point where I'm just going to touch up a couple little spots with the 320. I'll give it another slick over with the gum trag. Then I will probably hit it with some 600 grit. One more slick with gum trag. I see people going down to like 1200 grit sometimes. I don't go down that far. You really don't have to. Other than that, I'm going to get ready to top coat this with some Resolene, and that'll seal everything up. Resolene is a sealer. It is going to be a permanent seal, and it's not going to allow the leather to breathe at all like the tan coat does. That's why I use tan coat on the inside. It lets that leather breathe a little bit. The Resolene doesn't. So that's where I'm at. I want to do a pop in. I need to finalize the length of my strap that's going to hold the knife in the sheath. I wanted to show you just what I came up with for my edge finish. It's not perfect by any means, at least in my eyes. Some people say, wow, that looks cool. And it does. It looks very nice. But it's not perfect. There's a few little flaws in it, and you can see them if you look at it. I'm not going for absolute perfection because I could be here for a week doing it. It's just the way it is. I sanded it down to 400 grit, I think is all I went to. Because that's, quite honestly, that's enough, and you get a very nice finish on the edge. My finish was, I used gum tragacanth. This is just EcoFlow gum tragacanth from Tandy. Gave me a very nice edge, and figure out what we're going to have for a length on that. Remember, this is the back, so the spine of the knife faces to the front, and we want, just like this will spin around on this one. It will not do that on mine. So if this is the back of the sheath, we want the tail to be facing the back. So we just have to keep that in mind. I always put the edge of the knife blade to the back. Whether it's right or left-handed, it doesn't matter. The edge goes toward the back. So I do make my sheaths right or left-handed. That tail always goes to the back. So I want this piece of the snap to be on the back side. So we go down through the top here, and this is never fun because that is a 6 to 7 ounce piece of leather there. And what? I'm gonna make that a little bit easier on myself. And just kind of make that way, just so it kind of feeds through there a little bit better. And after a while, this will break in, and that will all just kind of smooth out and feel good. So we'll slide the knife in. I kind of want this piece to come right to the middle of the blade, or middle of the handle. So I'm going to just keep adjusting a little bit till it falls to the middle. So that is right about where I want it. Now it's hard to show you without, because I need to hold that in place because it's just going to pop around. So that's about where it falls. And I'm going to go ahead and come around with this. And I'm just going to press down a little bit on it. And that'll leave an impression right about in the middle. It's not exactly where I want the snap to be, but it's going to be close. So there's just an impression there. I'm going to go ahead and right in the middle of that impression, I am going to make a mark. And I will punch my hole for my snap, the other half of my snap in there. And you kind of have to remember that your snap is still going to have a little elevation to it too. So you got to leave a little extra room. You can't make that. If you take the two pieces and fold them together. Well, I'll show you on another piece one of these days. And fold them together raw without any room, you're not going to be able to snap it. So you got to have a little room in there. Now I can move that hole in probably. I can probably move it in if I've got a ruler. I've got 3/16 of an inch from the edge of the snap mark to the hole. I can probably move it in there half that distance and be okay. Leather will stretch a little bit, and that's fine because that's what we want it to do, a little bit. So let me grab my punch. I'll get this hole punched. I'm going to move it in just that little bit, about half of the distance from the edge of the snap to where I marked put my mark in the center of that. And I've got my hole punched in there. If I put the snap on here, I won't be able to take this out so I can finish it. So I'm going to kind of fake it here. I'm going to kind of assemble the snap, but I'm not going to finish it in here. But I'm going to set everything together without setting it. And I just want to make sure that everything's going to line up. And I think I'm going to be just fine. Everything's going to be able to snap together once it's set. So I'm not going to finish setting that snap. I think everything's going to be just fine. And I'm going to take the strap out of here so that I can finish my end. And I'll take the knife out. We'll put the knife away in the old sheath. Set that aside for the time being. And I'm going to go ahead. Now my strap, you'll see, fits these slots fairly tight. And I want it that way because I don't want a lot of wiggle in the strap. You saw on the knife that where it landed on the knife handle, and it's perfect. Because I took the time when I set everything up on the sheath and I measured it and I knew exactly where to cut these slots. So now I'm going to take and figure out, I always like to leave a little bit extra beyond it, and I noticed even on a cheap sheath like this, they left enough of a tail here that you can get a hold of it to rip your snap open, which is a really good idea. And in fact, they left about 3/4 of an inch by the looks of it, half an inch, which on the opposite, on the past the snap, I leave about half an inch, and I found that's a pretty good distance to have something to grab hold of and be able to pop the snap open. Half an inch is usually plenty. You don't really need any more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same as they did, and be about half an inch. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to go about half an inch. I'm going to round it off. Alright, everything has been set up overnight, cured overnight, I say, as I like to say anyway. So we need to feed our strap through. We want, when this buckles or when it snaps, I want it to be so the tab is facing the back, which is the curved part will go to the back. So we'll feed her through this way. Sometimes you got to fight a little bit with it. You just got to kind of manipulate things a little, which is fine. It's just how it should be. That's why we don't put the other half of the snap on there. I'm just going to feed it most of the way through so that I can put the rest of the snap in. Thought I heard someone up behind me here. Got the door open again. Another gorgeous day. We had a little frost last night. Looks like my tomatoes are done for the year. Get that out of my way. I'm just using this little anvil. I got some blue painter's tape on it. Just helps protect the snap so it doesn't get all crusty. Set that in. Set that piece in. I want to feel if the post is sticking up higher than the snap piece. I'll usually take it and kind of grind a little off it. When I hold my snap, I'm holding the snap down and holding the tool at the same time. I'm just going to grab my multi-purpose tool, and I like to get it kind of started. Without wailing on it. Barry King makes a tool that is pretty slick for doing snaps. It holds everything together. If you kind of rotate around a little, excuse me. Oh, sometimes you just gotta sneeze. I just want that set so that nothing turns on here. You don't gotta get super carried away with it, mashing it all together. So it'll turn in a little bit. There we go. So that's about what it should look like when you got it set properly. Set those out of the way. Now let's see if we got that strap the right length. I cut it off, rounded it, kind of finished it there a little bit. And I usually like that snap to fall right in the middle. And the first couple of times is usually kind of a pain in the tush to snap that. But there you go. Knife sheath is complete. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It came out perfect. I think this chocolate brown color was the perfect color for this knife. The handle, everything, I think it was the perfect color to go with this knife. So my customer made a good choice. I kind of suggested a shade of brown, and I suggested either the chocolate or the dark brown, or maybe a lighter medium brown, but a darker color to go with this handle, and I think that chocolate brown hit it out of the park. So they say. Flies. Got the door open today. 65 degrees. I'm letting some fresh air in the shop. Gets a little stinky in here sometimes. Not really, but it gets a little stuffy in here, we should say. Anyway, I got some other stuff I got to get back to. Got more projects coming, more leathercraft. I got some range videos coming. I've got quite a few of them coming. I've got some scopes that I'm going to review. I've got some really cool reviews coming up that I think you're going to find pretty interesting and pretty cool. Some of them relating to leathercraft, some of them relating to firearms. Just some really cool videos. So stay tuned for all that. If you want to see something in particular, drop a comment below. Let me know what you want to see. I'm up to making some specialized videos for what people want to see. And I've got a couple of series videos in mind that might tickle somebody's fancy. So, y'all stay safe. God bless. Drop a comment down below. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. It helps out the channel all the time. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate every comment, every like, every subscribe, and I respond to every comment that comes in. Stay safe. God bless, and we will catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.